Imagine you and your wife apply for a green card in America. You end up at 26 Federal Plaza, which is right here behind me, for an interview, and your interview doesn't go so well. Then you get a letter in the mail saying you have to come back before an immigration officer for what is known as a quote-unquote Stokes interview. Hi, my name is Mohammad Saleem. I'm an attorney in New York practicing immigration law since 2010. In this video, I'm going to explain what a Stokes interview is in terms of the immigration process for a green card based upon marriage to a US citizen. So my clients actually just finished a Stokes interview. I was in there with them for literally 3 hours. You know, first hour they make you wait, sweat it out. Then they interviewed the wife first because she's the petitioner. Then they interviewed the husband and asked questions to each one of them independently about each other and about their marriage. And then they bring them back in and say, here's where the discrepancies were. In this video, I'm going to cover why they were asked those questions initially and what types of questions they were, so that perhaps if you're going to be going through a similar experience or just want to watch this video to make sure you don't end up before an immigration officer, you know, because a Stokes interview, if you get a notice for that, they don't think immigration, meaning them, don't think your marriage is a bona fide marriage. All right, so let's begin. So again, I said my clients were in there earlier. How did they end up in this situation? Well, they went to somebody to help them prepare their case. You know, he came to America on a student visa and he met this girl, married her. She's a US citizen. She filed a petition for him. He didn't go to a lawyer and prepare the petition. He went to somebody who was a preparer, filled out the paperwork, filed it along with some documents. You know, when he got the interview notice, he contacted my office, said, hey, Mr. Saleem, I need you to go with me to the interview because I'm a little nervous. You know, I want to make sure I pass my interview, get my green card. So I met with him in my office. I was like, hey, there's some mistakes on your green card application. You got to fix them. And I don't think you have enough evidence. You're going to need more evidence to show that you're in a bona fide marriage. You know, that's a key word, that you have to convince immigration that you're in a bona fide marriage. You know, immigration, you know, here's the law part about it. Immigration wants to just make sure that you're not marrying the person for some sort of immigration benefit. You know, they want to see that you and that other person, whether it's your husband, your wife, your significant other, partner, you know, have made intentions to live a life together. That's the key words there. So it's not a marriage of convenience. It's not marriage to get documents, papers, whatever you want to call it. That can't be the reason. You have to show that when you enter that marriage, it was a bona fide marriage and it's something that you intend to live your life together with that person. You know, marriages don't always work out, but at least for the part being, you know, where somebody's going to sponsor you for a green card, you have to show the intention is to be together. Okay? So at his first interview, let's talk about that. I was here with him first interview a while back. It didn't go so well. He had some discrepancies. He didn't know when he met his wife or how he proposed and so forth. And because of that, afterwards, I told him, I was like, hey, listen, I prepared you. You got to know those things. He's like, I was just very nervous. I'm very sorry. He got a letter in the mail saying, you got to show up for a Stokes interview. So what's a Stokes interview? All right, now let's talk about that. A Stokes interview is an interview where the government, you know, has some reason to believe, based upon whether documents or your questions, that your marriage is not a bona fide marriage and it is not intended to make a life with that person, and perhaps, you know, it's for some other motive. So in this interview, immigration officers called both of them in, put them under oath, said that you have to answer questions truthfully. And they started with the wife first because she's the petitioner. So if you're the husband petitioner, they're going to start with you first. If you're the wife petitioner, they're going to start with you first. And then they told the applicant beneficiary to leave the room. You know, the applicant's the one that's trying to get the green card. And they questioned the wife for over an hour and a half. Where did you meet? When did you meet? How did you meet? You know, what happened after you met? How did you stay in touch with each other? How did your relationship get serious? I've got 5 pages of notes right here on my legal pad that I took, writing down every single type of question they were asking. I can't cover all the questions now, but I'll just tell you what types they were. And, again, your interview questions, if you're going to be facing a Stokes interview, it's going to be different, depending on your circumstances and so forth. This client, mine, he was of a different religion. She was of a different religion. He was of different ethnic background. She was a different ethnic background. So naturally, immigration officers like, okay, you're a different religion. She's a different religion. You're a different race. She's a different race. What's the connection? How did you connect? Who made the next step to pursue the relationship? When did you propose to each other? What did you give to each other during the proposal? When was the wedding? Who was at the wedding? Where was the wedding? What did you do to celebrate the wedding? Do you have any photos of that? When did you move in together? Who decided you were going to move into this place or that place? All those questions were being answered, by the wife in a correct way, about what happened, because, my belief is this is a real marriage. They didn't know a lot. Nobody knows every single detail about each other's family or the marriage or remembers it when they're called upon. But for the most part, they answered all those questions correctly. Now, they had some discrepancies about, where did she travel during this time or that time? He's like, I think she went here or she went there. Or, I went away because I had to get a trucker's license or something else like that. But, generally speaking, they were very consistent. So, when after the wife was done answering the questions, the husband was asked many of those same exact questions. Your wife, whatever she said, that officer is going to ask that same type of question to the husband to make sure how he answers it. So, you've got to be consistent in your answers and your story, because if you really want to convince an immigration officer, you got to know, a lot about your wife, her family, her history, if she has children, where she went to school, where she works, what her future plans are, where you guys live, who decided to live there, what's in your neighborhood, where do you go shop, where do you do laundry, where do you, go out to eat, where do you have dinner, like how all these kind of little details. It's hard to explain, sometimes to immigrants that, yes, immigration is very particular. They want to see, they're not going to ask you details about your love life in terms of like, intimate aspects. They're going to know how do you spend your time together? What do you like to eat? What do you like to do? What's your entertainment? Have you traveled together? Have you met each other's families? Have you hung out with each other's families? So a lot of questions, that they'll just kind of pepper at you in terms of asking you over and over again, to make sure that they get an idea that you do know the family, you do know her, you spend time together, that you're living together. That's really important. If you're living in a different state, she's living in a different state, you're traveling around a lot, you got to be prepared to make sure that you can answer those questions. So again, wife went first, then the husband, came in, the wife was sent out the room, he was asked the same questions, and then they were brought in together. And then the immigration officer, doing this Stokes interview to test them to see if their marriage is real or not, started saying, here are some problems that I saw. How come you don't know where he went on this day, or he traveled on this place, or when he started this job, or why he dropped out of this school or that school? Like they try to kind of put those things before you to be like, that's strange. Why don't you know this? Why don't you know what you did this weekend? Why don't you know, where you went, last month for this trip? Or why doesn't she know it? Why doesn't he know it? So they kind of put you together and kind of let you know these are some of the discrepancies. Now, in my case, there were not that many discrepancies. So the immigration officer said, hey, I'm going to make a decision in a couple of months. Generally speaking, they have up to 120 days. It's recorded, so, she may go back and listen to the record. As an attorney, at the end of it, I did put in some strong points about the documents that they had already submitted. So, you want to make sure when you're going into this interview, you're also ready with some new updated documents. It's your chance to really show the government, hey, you're still in a marriage. First time you came to the interview, you were not prepared. You're still in a real marriage. You've got bank statements, financial records, maybe credit card statements, maybe insurance records or other types of records that demonstrate that you and your wife live your life together. Maybe you've made some travel plans together. Bring all those records. Maybe you've got some health insurance. Maybe you've got some life insurance. Maybe you bought some stocks together in a brokerage account. Whatever it is you do. The definition of marriage, it's not narrow. It can be different types of things that you did together to kind of establish that. So, I put all that into the evidence and the record to say this is my client's case. It's very strong and that a favorable decision should be made. That's what a good lawyer does. You want to make sure that you're going in there to advocate on behalf of your clients and making sure that the officer is given a confident impression that this is a bona fide marriage and that she's looking with a positive attitude to approve the case based upon the records and so forth. So, I at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, she, told us to leave. She'll let us know in the mail. If she does deny it, we will fight it. We will appeal it. We believe it's a bona fide marriage. But I'm confident, I feel good that, it will get approved. So that's what a Stokes interview is. Many people look it up. They don't know what it's like. They've never had anybody even go into one, or if they just heard about it. I'm hoping that this information helps people out there as an attorney. I just want to share the information that I'm getting, that I'm seeing from real immigration officers who actually do these types of interviews. Not just some fictional, account of here's the type of questions they're going to ask you, but right here in New York, downtown Manhattan, these are the actual questions that were asked by the immigration officer. If you're an immigrant, you're applying for the process and you're kind of lost or confused or puzzled about what's going on, or you're stuck hitting a wall, or you've got an interview coming up, you can call our office and speak to me, and I'd be happy to speak to you about your immigration case and, perhaps even represent you. Take care.